Sometimes a sign from God can look like no sign at all. I remember being in a previous relationship where I constantly prayed to God for a sign, just something, anything to tell me whether I should leave this man. Now, I know it sounds crazy, but follow me. For a while, it felt like God was just leaving things open ended, and I took that as my cue to stay. I told myself I don't want to move prematurely, so I stayed hoping for clarity. But what I didn't realize then was that God had already given me everything I needed to make the decision. I just didn't want to move because the answer didn't look like what I had expected it to look like. Sometimes the hardest part isn't waiting for a sign, it's trusting yourself to act on what's already clear.
Few things are as powerful. Few things are as powerful as
What is going on, beautiful people? You are listening to the Affirmations for Black Girls podcast, where we focus on personal growth and cultivating a healthy relationship with ourselves. I am your host, Tyra, the creative actress, content creator, and mental health enthusiast. And y'all, what we're talking about today has been something that has been that I've been working on a lot in my life lately. Signs from God have always been hard for me to interpret. I'd find myself second guessing my intuition, unsure if it was truly God speaking to me or if it was just my own thoughts that were super loud. And over time, I've learned the importance of trusting my intuition more, leaning into my Bible for guidance, and really studying how God reveals signs. Now, one verse that's been a reminder for me is John 4 and 48. For context, this is when Jesus speaks to a royal official whose son is dying, and he says, "Unless you see signs and wonders, you will not believe." Now, at this point in the gospel, Jesus challenges people's reliance on visible miracles for faith, urging them to trust him beyond what they can see. The official then takes Jesus at his word, and his son is healed. And it shows that faith often requires trusting God without demanding for proof. Unless you see signs and wonders, you will not believe. I think it's a call to recognize that God's presence and direction aren't always tied to something flashy or dramatic. Sometimes it's about trusting his quiet nudges and being aligned with his word. Now, before we dive any deeper, we need to get into our affirmation. So, this week's affirmation is I am open to opportunities, even if they don't look like what I expected. Let's go ahead and drop in, you guys. I am open to opportunities, even if they don't look like what I expected. I am open to opportunities, even if they don't look like what I expected. I am open to opportunities, even if they don't look like what I expected. I am open to opportunities, even if they don't look like what I expected. I am open to opportunities, even if they don't look like what I expected. Let's really focus on opening ourselves to these opportunities, y'all. I am open to opportunities, even if they don't look like what I expected. Let's say it one last time together. I am open to opportunities, even if they don't look like what I expected. Ooh, Lord, y'all. Here's the thing. There are so many opportunities, even most opportunities that don't look like what we expected. And this affirmation really speaks to me because, like I mentioned earlier, sometimes signs from God can look very different than what we imagine. And I used to think that if something was meant for me, it would come with a clear and obvious sign. But over time, I've realized that opportunities often show up in very unexpected forms, sometimes in small steps or situations that don't immediately make sense to me. And not every opportunity is going to have the flashing lights or come wrapped in a bow, but that doesn't mean it's not meant for you. Sometimes it's just about seeing things from a different perspective and realizing that God is waiting on you to take that next step. Opportunities don't always look like what we envision. Sometimes they come in unexpected forms. For example, a job that doesn't match your exact career path might teach you some invaluable skills or give you some connections that help you later on in life. It's important to embrace opportunities that don't fit into the neat little box that you or me or whoever have created for success and embrace that unconventional opportunity. So, one of the biggest things that I want to talk about first is reframe what you're looking for when it comes to signs from God, right? So, sometimes the signs don't look like how we expect. So, reframe how you look at it. There might be some smaller steps or things at play that are needed to push us out of our comfort zone. One thing that I've been saying to myself a lot more is if an opportunity feels uncomfortable or challenging, it might be a sign that it's the right one. Now, that takes some deep work, but growth happens when we step outside of our comfort zones. So, a situation that feels unfamiliar or intimidating could be the very chance that you have been waiting for, and you shouldn't let discomfort hold you back from it. Now, there are also some signs that you can assess within yourself that you may be overlooking an opportunity, right? So, things like focusing too much on timing or doubting your readiness. And speaking of doubting my readiness, y'all, I doubt my readiness all the time, and I'm working on it a lot more these days. But the biggest thing is like not wanting to do recipe content. Okay, let me start at the beginning. But you guys know that I am a pastry chef. And, or a lot of you guys who listen to the podcast know that I am a pastry chef. And back in, I started my YouTube channel in 2017. And from that day, I was like, I want to do recipe content. This was before there were tons and tons of people doing recipe content. And I said, okay, I'm going to do food. But when I started in 2017, I said, let me just get my feet wet. Let me see how to work YouTube, all of this type of stuff. And then the more that I dove into it, I was like, I don't think I'm ready to do recipe content because it is so time consuming. And that then turned into years and years of not doing recipe content because I did not feel like I was ready. I thought I was going to wake up one day and be like, okay, now I feel 100% ready. Let's go ahead and do this. But that honestly never came. And these days, I dream about Tyra's Table and all of the food content that I do post now being bigger than what it is at this moment. And it just goes to show that you cannot wait on your readiness. What ended up happening was I started posting different cocktail recipes and I wanted to get into the food space in the easiest way possible, which I'm glad I took these baby steps. But then I said, okay, I don't even drink like that. Tyra, stop making all these cocktail videos. I was making them because they were easier. And I eventually started posting some food content. I don't even remember what my first food video was, but I ended up posting a recipe from my childhood. I made Dixie cups and I put them on my YouTube channel. And y'all, that video has now hit like 9 million views. And while it's not as important about the number attached to it or the vanity metrics, clearly there is a lane for me in this. And even though I was doubting my readiness and that stopped me from doing it for a long time, I was like, wow, like I do have a spot in this way. Now, another thing that we can do is recognize the hidden blessings in our everyday tasks. Because, like we've been saying, the opportunity might not be big, it might not be flashy events, but the day-to-day routine is where you can really like figure out, okay, this could be a sign from God. This could be moving in the direction that God wants me to move, whether it's a new connection that you make at the grocery store while you're picking up groceries for the week, or a random hobby that sparks your creativity. Looking for those small moments can also encourage growth. And sometimes the best opportunities are disguised as these mundane tasks. Like you literally never know where the blessing is going to come from. You literally never know what action is going to catapult your career. I'm going to give you another example. And I can only talk about this a little bit because I'm still in the midst of it. But I was invited to an event in downtown LA. It was a foodie event and I went. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to pop in because I had another event that I was going to later. And when I popped in, it was a lot of like chefs and foodies there. And I ended up standing right next to this man that I did not know. And we ended up talking. I forgot what we talked about, but I ended up mentioning that I was going to an event afterwards. And I said the name of the event that I was going to. And he was like, oh, I'm actually supposed to be there. And as we continued to talk, I said, oh, so you work there? He said, yes. And I was like, well, I'm trying to give me a show. So you need to give me a show. And long story short, y'all, he was the one of the decision makers that could get me a show. I don't think y'all understand. I went to a random event that had nothing to do with something that was in my heart. And I didn't even put two and two together at that point. I didn't go into that event with the intention to speak with someone in a decision making position. I literally stood right next to this man and we just hit it off having conversation, just being nice. And it ends up that he is one of the top decision makers in a place that of power that can help me get to where I'm trying to go. That's what I mean. Like taking time for those small steps or finding the blessings in those mundane or those everyday tasks that you do. And on the flip side of that, I know that there's a certain level of awareness that needs to come with trying to reframe your brain around your blessings or hearing from God and all of this. So you can do things like journaling, practicing gratitude, and asking trusted friends for perspective. The one person that I always go to is my best friend, Bria. Okay. Because when you ask your trusted friends for perspective, they can help you see what is already in front of you. But y'all know I'm a practical girl. So one of the biggest things that has been helping me as of lately is opening my heart up to prayer. Prayer is not only a way to seek guidance, but it's also a practice to help surrender your fears and your doubts and control of your life. By opening your heart through prayer, you allow yourself to listen more deeply for God's guidance and in turn be more sensitive to the signs. Even subconsciously, prayer can help you become more attuned to the opportunities around you and much more confident in taking that action. And then you could also reflect and pay attention to your faith. So, reflecting on your faith and how God has guided you in the past can also make you more aware of your current opportunities. So, think back to moments where you've seen God work in your life or other people's lives in unexpected ways. This reflection can help you trust that God is guiding you now. Even if it doesn't look like what you expected, faith is a tool that shifts your perspective and helps you spot divine opportunities. And since it's the beginning of the year, one thing that is a great tool to measure the blessings that God has blessed you with in your life and your trajectory is a vision board. Creating a vision board is a visual tool that aligns your goals with your heart's desires. By seeing your dreams and your intentions on display every day, you are constantly reminded of the opportunities that you are aiming for. And you also have like a jumping off point of what you should pray for when you having your alone time with God. You have something to refer back to. A vision board acts as a visual reminder, helping you see the opportunities that align with your values and your long-term goals. And one thing that I'm trying to like really do better at this year, because I absolutely love doing this, but it's just so hard for me to keep up with, is journaling. And journaling for clarity. Journaling is one of the most powerful tools that you have for self reflection. When you put your thoughts on paper, you make room for deeper insight. And it also allows you to track patterns, identify desires that you may not be fully aware of, and see where opportunities might already be hidden. And those patterns that I'm talking about is anything that God has blessed you with in the past, because hindsight is 2020. We already know people talk about this all the time. And I love going back through my old journals and seeing when I was struggling with something and then I was praying to God about it. And then I got past that, or I was blessed with whatever I was believing God for, and just seeing the whole timeline, seeing the play by play is just crazy. And it's helpful for journaling. It's also helpful for sorting through confusion and gaining clarity on what is truly important to you. Have y'all ever heard of that acronym for fear? False evidence appearing real. Fear is often the invisible barrier that keeps us stuck, and it can disguise itself as a lot of different things. Things like procrastination, perfectionism, self doubt, overthinking, wanting to be waiting for the perfect moment, wanting to be perfect, or even people pleasing. And much of what we fear is based on our perceptions or our thoughts, and they aren't actually rooted in reality. So, one of the biggest things I feel like that can help us with hearing from God more, or more being more in tune with it, is recognizing when we just scared. Recognizing that fear has disguises. Fear a lot of times doesn't show up as fear. So, yeah, like I said, it can show up as procrastination, perfectionism, or waiting on the perfect moment. And for me, a big, big fearful moment in my life so far, as far as my career goes, is procrastination with my podcast. I wanted to start a podcast in 2018, and I found every reason in the book why I could not do it. I was like, well, I can't start a podcast just me. I need people to be in the podcast with me. Okay, well, what I'm gonna talk about? I'm not gonna have nothing to talk about from week to week. Um, I had imposter syndrome as well with it. I was like, I need to make sure that I am in a place where I can talk about X, Y, and Z every single week. I found every reason in the book not to start my podcast in 2018. And it took me all the way until the pandemic to say, Tyra, go ahead and do this. And the crazier thing about it is, when I was asking God, like, God, what should I be doing? All of these things, I felt like I never heard anything back. But now in hindsight, when I wanted to start a podcast in 2018, I originally said, okay, well, I'm going to start it with my boyfriend at the time. We couldn't get it together. Started arguing about it, all that. I said, you know what? This is taking too much energy from me creatively. I know. So I'm gonna sit on the idea. And then I tried to start a podcast with two friends. They ended up falling out, and in turn the podcast was never started. So that in itself was a sign, y'all. And while I was like, God, I need a sign on what my podcast need to be about or whatever, I wasn't recognizing the sign that he was already giving me. Sometimes no sign is a sign. And that's why being in tune and really paying attention to how God has spoken to you in the past is so important, because a lot of times we are not waiting on God. We waiting on ourselves to, one, realize the sign that he has given us or the lack thereof a sign, and to move in that way. Another way that we can get out of like the fearful mindset and move forward is to shift our mindset to focus on progress over perfection and take small steps, because that's better than waiting indefinitely. And for me, a big illustration of that is Tyra's Table. Like I said, you guys know I'm a pastry chef, and I call all my food content, it's under my umbrella, Tyra's Table, for context. I slowly started putting out videos that I was excited about. And like I said, one of those videos has amassed 9 million views. And while the views are not what I was going for, it said to me, oh, yeah, there is a lane for me here. And this is more so recently, and I've talked about this on the podcast before, but I also started finding other friends in this space that loved God as well. Having like minded community is very important. Like we talked about, those trusted friends, that like minded community can also be there to help you push through whatever obstacle you are facing at the time. To break through the fear and start small, choose one manageable task that feels achievable. It could be as simple as writing down your goals, making that phone call to that person in your community that knows what you're going through, making that phone call to that friend that you trust to help you in situations like this, or doing a 10-minute action towards whatever you want, whether that is, I don't even know, writing down a creative plan for your next week's content, or if you're looking for a new job, getting on LinkedIn for 10 minutes and saving some jobs that you like, or going over your resume, anything like that. And you could also pair these things with positive affirmations like, I am capable of making progress no matter how small, or progress is better than no progress, right? Celebrate each little win, even if it's just crossing one thing off your to do list, because the key is to create momentum. Every step forward, no matter how small, builds confidence and pushes you closer to whatever goal it is you're trying to achieve. Faith without works is what? Dead. Faith isn't just about waiting, it's about moving with trust and intention. Taking intentional steps towards what you are believing God for should feel like you're working in tandem with God's plan for your life. You can't just pray for a job and wait for it to fall into your lap. You have to apply for that job. You have to network with people and you have to take steps toward it, believing that God will direct your path. Now, in James chapter 2, verse 17, it says, faith by itself, if it is not accompanied by action, is dead. It's about taking steps in faith and trusting that God will meet you halfway. When you're aligning your goals with your purpose, ask yourself, is this in alignment with what God has called me to do? Your goals should reflect your values and the person that you are becoming. And if they don't, it might be time for a shift. So ask yourself, do my goals bring me peace? Do they align with the values that I stand for? And if the answer is no, it is okay to recalibrate, go back into your prayer closet and be like, God, okay, what are we about to do to make sure that your pursuits are serving your purpose? And y'all know that I'm a practical girl. So here are some practical ways that you can act in faith. So first, like I already talked about, we talked about journaling, but you can do a gratitude journal. You can write down 3 things every day that you're thankful for and watch how it opens your heart to God's plan for your life. Like, it's just journaling, putting anything down on paper and then going back and reflecting on it. is such a game changer because you can see how God is opening up your heart, what your deepest desires are, what you may want to ask God for, right? In the same vein, you can create a vision board that reflects your dreams while leaving room for God's will. I think that's a big thing that we don't do a lot is leaving room for God's will in our lives. It's okay to have to want something for your life, but knowing that, hey, I these are the things that I want, these are the desires of my heart, and Lord, I am giving those things to you. So once you do that, pray over it and ask God for his direction, and finally, you can make a plan for the week ahead, knowing that you don't have to have it all figured out. You can trust that God will lead you step by step, and wherever you need to detour, wherever you need to backtrack, jump over an obstacle, or wait at a red light, you know that God got you. If you don't leave here knowing anything else, I want you to know that faith is not passive, it's active. You are not just sitting around waiting for God to make things happen. You are waiting on you to take that first step. And that's why at the top of this episode, I've given you guys so many practical things to think about. Because a lot of times we are waiting for God to give us a sign, and we already have everything we need to take that first step. Now, in some instances, God has already set the stage. He's already opened the door, but it's up to you to walk into it. A lot of times we look for the perfect moment or a sign to move forward, but sometimes the sign is that quiet nudge inside your heart to take action, even if you don't have all the answers yet. And I'm not going to lie, I know that's scary. It's scary for me. I was talking to my best friend back when I was at home for Christmas, and she's been thinking about a very life changing decision for a while now. And when we were chatting, she mentioned that when she would have her alone time with God, she would pray and ask God for a sign. And she's been asking him for some time now. And she had been waiting on him to show her something in a way that he normally shows her a sign. And after a moment of quiet in our conversation, she said, "Child, I guess no sign is the sign." We're often holding ourselves back, waiting for the right timing and the right circumstances or the perfect opportunity or the flashy sign. But faith does not wait for everything to be perfect. It moves even when the way isn't fully clear. So again, you're not waiting on God. You are waiting on you to trust yourself enough to move forward, even if it is a small step. God doesn't always give us the big, bold signs that we expect. Sometimes He's speaking to us through those quiet nudges, those lack thereof signs, through our passions, through the little doors that open when we take one step at a time. The yes, the go for it, the this is for you that we're waiting for might already be here, y'all, disguised in a form that feels uncomfortable or unfamiliar. But that is where the growth happens. So stop waiting for the perfect moment or the perfect version of yourself to show up because that simply doesn't exist. I want you to recognize the chances you've been given. Move through any fear you may have with true faith and trust that God will meet you exactly where you are. The next move is yours, baby. Sometimes God is waiting on you to take that one step to get the ball rolling because He's already teed you up, but you are the one that's up to bat. It's time for you to put some action behind that faith. And of course, that's not the case in every situation. Sometimes there will be moments where you need to be still, to trust, to wait, to be quiet, but there are also times when it's your turn to do something, like to act in faith, to take that step forward, to open that door that's already unlocked for you. So don't wait for everything to align perfectly. Just start and trust that God will meet you along your journey. Uh-oh, y'all. You already know what time it is. It is time for our fun closing segment. Today's closing segment is One Gotta Go. Now, my producer, Tyra, put something together, and I'm so nervous because it is about our comfort foods. So, One Gotta Go in this series, in this fun closing segment, I am going to pick one that gotta go. So she gave me three things to choose from. Oh gosh. Okay, so we got winter comfort foods. One gotta go. Chili, tomato super grilled cheese, or pot roast. Oh Lord, y'all. Okay. Ooh, see, I'm a foodie. Y'all already know this. All of these are so good, but if I had to just pick one off rip, I would say chili gotta go. And here's why. I don't eat a lot of chili. I'm from the South. I'm from Louisiana. And my mama loved putting a pot roast in the slow cooker for us to have during the winter months. So I grew up eating that so much. And it just reminds me of home. It reminds me of a hug. But on the flip side of that, I love me a grilled cheese. And lately I've been saying, hey Tyra, we gotta make some grilled cheese. I'll be saying this to myself, we gotta make some grilled cheese and some tomato soup. Cause it's just such a great combination. But chili, I've only had chili like a couple times. It's not nasty or anything. It's just not something that I have often. So if I had to pick one off rip, I would definitely say chili. Let me know what y'all think. Which one gotta go for y'all? Cause y'all might be like, chili, girl, chili is where it's at. Now, if she would have had like gumbo on here, and if she would have had gumbo, a pot roast, and the tomato soup, then I don't know which one gotta go. At that point, like that would be crazy. But chili, I think I could do without chili. Like, cause it's just it'd be good, but it's like the beans and then the cornbread. Like I could eat red beans and rice with my cornbread. Like I could get beans somewhere else. I don't have to have the chili. But chili is good. And if somebody said, "Hey, I made some chili," I would definitely take a bowl of chili, but yeah. Tomato soup with a grilled cheese is definitely my number one right now. And then a pot roast would be secondary just because I'm looking at it from a standpoint of if I gotta make it, but if I gotta eat it, because I was just thinking about making a pot roast, which is so crazy. If I'm making it, then I'll be like tomato soup number one, then pot roast. But if I'm just eating it, I would probably say pot roast first if somebody else went and made it. Because with the potatoes and the carrots, oh, my mouth is just watering even thinking about this right now. But yeah, I would say that the chili gotta go. Let me know what y'all think. Which one gotta go? Let me know. Um, but thank you guys so much for listening to today's episode. The overall message for today, I really just wanted to say, like, you are not waiting on God. You are waiting on you. And I know that doesn't apply to every single situation, but there are a lot of situations where we are paralyzed with fear or we're paralyzed with uncertainty. And that causes us to stand still when God has given us the signs. Now, everybody's situation is going to look different. And I know everybody's relationship with God is a little different. You got to know how he speaks to you. And you also have to make sure that you're taking that time, that alone time with him and praying and be like, God, okay, lay it on my heart, whatever I need to do, and really taking inventory of how you feel. Like, is that fear? Is that procrastination rooted in fear? Is that why are you procrastinating in the first place? All of that stuff is super important because procrastination as a whole, we need to try to get rid of that because I procrastinate a lot, I will say. But I think a lot of my procrastination comes from overwhelm, which is also something that I need to continue to work on. But baby girl, you're not waiting on God. You waiting on you. And with that being said, y'all, thank you so much for listening. If you're not already subscribed to our podcast on YouTube, go over and subscribe. Make sure that you rate the podcast wherever you listen, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever. Make sure you rate us and leave us a review. I love reading every single one of the reviews. We passed 1,000 reviews on Apple. We getting up there on Spotify too. So leave us a review. It really, really helps the podcast. we hit the top 100 in mental health podcasts on Apple. And I just cannot believe that. I cannot believe so many of you guys love this podcast. And I'm just believing God that it's going to be even bigger in this new year, in season 4. Okay. Because we are embracing big deal energy all year. And along with that big deal energy, you got to know that God done already teed you up. Okay? He didn't already gave you the sign. And if you've been asking for a sign for a long, long time, maybe no sign is that sign. So do your deep work. Spend some more time with him. Meditate on that. Pray about that to really see if that is the sign for you. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for listening. And I will see you guys again next week. This is Affirmations for Black Girls.